Welcome to Hidden Ties, where every story hides a deeper truth. It was supposed to be just another day to mourn my mother. But then I saw her face freeze when she locked eyes with my husband, the millionaire fiancé she'd stolen from me years ago. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I'd love to know. I don't remember much about the first few hours of the funeral. I was too busy making sure everything was in place. Flowers, food, people, everything had to be perfect. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about what I wanted. It was about giving my mom a proper send-off. That's how I'd always been. The practical one. The one who got things done. At 52, I had spent my life being the steady rock for everyone around me. I was the eldest, the one my parents relied on for everything. My sister Elle was always the opposite. Reckless, spontaneous, and incredibly charming when she wanted to be. I remember when we were younger, I'd often joke that if I could bottle up just a tiny bit of her energy, maybe I could finally be free from the pressure of always doing the right thing. Of course, she'd laugh it off, but deep down, I always admired her ability to make people love her ability to get what she wanted. I never expected that would turn on me one day. We hadn't spoken much in the years leading up to my mother's passing. Ella had gone off to live in California, chasing a dream that never really panned out. She had been living in a small apartment, scraping by, always somehow managing to keep her head above water. Meanwhile, I'd built a life with my husband, Mark, the man she'd once promised herself she would marry. We'd been together for over 20 years, married for 15. Mark wasn't just any man. He was wealthy, a successful businessman who'd worked his way up from nothing. He'd started a tech company that went public years ago, and now he had more money than anyone could need. It made me uncomfortable at times, but I loved him, and I was proud of what he had accomplished. Elle, on the other hand, had always been the wild one, the one who couldn't settle down, and she had been obsessed with Mark since high school. I never thought much of it. I knew he was the kind of man women liked, and Elle, with her natural beauty and free-spirited personality, had no trouble getting attention. What I didn't know then was that she had set her sights on Mark long before I had even realized I was falling for him. It was Elle who first introduced us. I was only 28 at the time, and Mark was already doing well with his business. He was charming, funny, and there was something about him that made me feel like I could trust him right away. But what I didn't know was that Elle had already been making moves on him for months. She was sneaky about it, never coming out right and saying anything. But I knew something was off when I found out that she had been telling people she was engaged to him. I confronted Mark about it, and he admitted that she had tried, several times. But he made it clear that he had always been more interested in me. At least, that's what he said. At the time, I believed him, and we got married. But even then, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Years passed, and I pushed the uncomfortable thought of my sister's betrayal to the back of my mind. Life got busy. We had children, I focused on my career, and Elle faded into the background. But my sister never really left me, did she? She came back into our lives in small ways, always at the holidays, always with that same smile that made her so disarming. That day at the funeral, she showed up just like everyone else. She hadn't even bothered to let me know she was coming, but I wasn't surprised. She never could follow through on anything, least of all common courtesy. I was greeting the mourners when I saw her enter the church. At first, she looked like the Elle I remembered. Flawless makeup, hair done just right, and wearing an outfit that was a bit too glamorous for a funeral. But what struck me, what made my stomach twist, was the way she froze when her eyes locked with Mark's. Mark, standing next to me, must have felt it too because he stiffened, just a little, and I noticed his grip on my hand tighten. He was a professional at hiding his emotions, but I knew him too well. His expression faltered for just a second, and that was all I needed to see. Ella stood frozen at the doorway for a moment. Her mouth hung open like she had seen a ghost. Then she did the one thing I hadn't expected. She walked straight toward us, eyes locked with Mark's, her expression a mixture of shock and something else, something that felt like regret. "Ella, what the hell are you doing here?" I asked, my voice sharp, but not too loud. The room was heavy with sadness, and I didn't want to make a scene, but I couldn't help it. I had just lost my mom, and now, here she was, in front of me, acting like nothing had happened. She paused for a moment, then gave me one of her signature smiles. It was the kind that never quite reached her eyes. I had to be here, Leah," she said, her voice too soft. "I owe it to Mom." "You owe it to Mom?" I repeated, my grip on Mark's hand tightening. "You owe it to her to show up now?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, her eyes flicked to Mark again, and the entire room seemed to hold its breath. I felt like I was standing on a precipice, waiting for something, anything, to break. Mark cleared his throat. "It's good to see you, Elle," he said, his tone as professional as ever. Elle gave him a tight nod, but her gaze didn't waver from his face. "I didn't know you'd be here, Mark," she said, almost as if testing the waters. I looked between them, feeling the tension growing. My mind raced. Was she still trying to get something from him? Did she really think she could walk in here after everything and just pretend everything was fine? The betrayal wasn't just in the past. It was alive, and it was standing right in front of me, staring me down like it had never happened. "Excuse me," Elle said suddenly, breaking the silence. "I just need a moment. I'll be right back." Before I could respond, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. I stared at Mark, who was now avoiding my gaze. My stomach churned. It was like we were back at square one. Elle, the woman who had taken everything from me, was now back in my life. And I was certain of one thing: this was far from over. The rest of the funeral passed in a blur, mostly because my brain refused to process the situation. I couldn't stop thinking about the look Elle had given Mark. It was like she was holding on to some deep, unspoken history between them, something I hadn't fully grasped in all these years. I could feel the tension thick in the air, not just between Elle and Mark, but between Elle and me. Every time I glanced at her across the room, she was watching me like I was the enemy. As soon as the last mourner had left, I excused myself, telling Mark I needed a moment. I slipped outside, the cold wind hitting me like a slap. The world outside the church was quiet, peaceful in its own way, but my mind was anything but calm. The funeral was over, but I was far from finished. I didn't know where I was going. Maybe I just needed some space, some time to collect my thoughts. But as I walked down the street, I spotted her. Elle, standing by her car, looking like she was trying to make herself disappear. For a second, I considered walking past her, leaving the drama to simmer on its own, but I couldn't. I needed answers. "Elle," I called, my voice sharp in the cold air. She turned slowly, her face still too calm, too composed. "Leah," she replied, almost like she was waiting for me to strike first. "You okay?" I didn't even know where to begin. "You just waltz in here after everything and pretend like nothing happened?" Her eyes narrowed, the calmness faltering just a little. "You really want to do this now?" she asked, her voice low but firm. "Damn right I do. What the hell was that back there, Elle? The way you froze when you saw Mark. Don't tell me you've forgotten what happened between you two." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she shifted on her feet, glancing around like she was looking for an escape. The air between us thickened, and I could almost see the gears turning in her head as she figured out whether or not she should come clean. But she didn't, and that's when I realized she had never planned on telling me the truth. "You really want to do this?" she repeated. "You want to drag all this up again? After Mom's funeral, of all things?" I felt my blood boil. "This has nothing to do with Mom. This has everything to do with you and what you took from me." Ella let out a sharp breath, then took a step closer, lowering her voice. "Leah, you think you're the only one who's had their heart broken? You think I wanted to hurt you?" I almost laughed, but it wasn't funny. "You think that's what this is about? You think I'm just mad about you breaking my heart?" You stole something from me, Ellie. Something I'll never get back. She seemed to freeze again, but this time it was different. This time, there was guilt written all over her face. For a moment, I thought she was going to apologize, but instead, she shook her head. I didn't steal anything. Mark, he chose you. He chose you, Leah, not me. I was about to argue when she cut me off. You're not hearing me. I didn't want to take him from you, but I couldn't help it, and I don't know why I kept coming back, why I kept making things harder than they had to be. But I did. And now, I don't know where to go from here. I stood there, feeling the weight of her words pressing down on me. Did she really believe that? Did she really think I would believe that? The Elle I knew would never admit she was wrong, would never apologize for what she did. But something had changed in her. She wasn't the same carefree sister I remembered. So, what now? I asked, the edge in my voice barely contained. You think you can just show up, drop this bombshell, and then we're supposed to pretend like we're one big, happy family? Elle shook her head, her lips trembling. No, Leah, I never wanted this. I've been trying to make peace with it for years, but I don't know how to make it right. For the first time, I saw the cracks in her armor. For a moment, I thought she might actually be telling the truth. But then the old resentment flared up, and I couldn't help myself. You took everything from me, Elle, I said, my voice cracking. Everything. And you're still not sorry for it. Her eyes flashed with anger. I never meant to hurt you, she snapped. I never wanted it to be like this. I took a step back, my thoughts a tangled mess. Could I really forgive her for all of this? Could I ever let go of the pain she had caused me? My mind screamed no, but my heart felt differently. Don't expect me to forget this, Elle, I said quietly. Not now, not ever. She didn't respond. Instead, she turned and got into her car, slamming the door behind her. I watched her drive off, feeling the weight of the conversation sink into my bones. I stood there for a few minutes longer, trying to make sense of everything that had just happened. But all I could think about was how things had been before she ruined them, before she made me feel like I wasn't enough. It wasn't over, though, not by a long shot. The pain, the anger, it was still there, lingering just beneath the surface, and I was done pretending like it wasn't. The next few days were a blur. I don't think I slept more than a few hours at a time, constantly turning over everything that had happened with Elle in my mind. I was supposed to be grieving my mother, but all I could think about was the old wounds that had been reopened. Ella's face kept flashing in front of me, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite define. Guilt? Regret? Or was it just her usual manipulation? I tried to focus on what mattered, getting through the memorial service, keeping Mark close, making sure my kids were okay. But every time Mark and I were alone, I couldn't stop myself from asking him about Elle. I knew he hated talking about it, but I had to know. Mark, what really happened between you two? I asked one night, my voice barely above a whisper. Was it just me, or was Elle? Was she really in love with you? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Leah, you know how complicated things were back then. I never wanted to hurt you, but she was different. She had a way of pulling people in, making them feel special. But it was never you I was in love with. It was always her. I swallowed hard, trying to ignore the sting of his words. You loved her? No, Leah. I loved you, he said firmly, looking me directly in the eye. You were always the one for me. I couldn't help how I felt about her at the time. She was my weakness. That's great, I muttered bitterly. So Elle was your weakness, huh? Mark took a step forward, his hands outstretched. I'm not saying it was okay, but I didn't know how to deal with it. She was never supposed to be the one I ended up with. That was the problem. For as much as Mark had tried to explain himself, The truth was that Elle had been a constant presence in our lives, no matter how far away she had been. It wasn't just about the past, it was about how she had lingered, leaving her mark on everything we'd built. She had left a scar that hadn't fully healed. After that conversation, I thought about taking a step back from Elle, maybe letting it all go. But the thing was, I couldn't. Not when so many pieces of the puzzle still didn't add up. I needed to know the whole story, and there was only one way to get it: confront her head on. I didn't plan to do it at first, but as I drove through the streets toward Elle's apartment a few days later, the thought of it felt inevitable. I had to put the past to rest, one way or another. When I knocked on her door, it was almost like time had stood still. She opened the door, looking as put together as ever, but there was a sharpness in her eyes that made my stomach churn. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. The last time we'd spoken, there had been something raw between us, something unresolved. This time, I didn't have the luxury of holding back. "Leah," she said cautiously, as if trying to gauge my mood, "what are you doing here?" I crossed my arms, taking a deep breath. "I want to know everything, Elle. Everything about you and Mark. I can't keep living like this, pretending I don't care, pretending I don't know what happened." Her expression shifted, but it was subtle. "I already told you I didn't mean to hurt you." I shook my head, frustration bubbling over. "No, you didn't just hurt me, Elle. You took my future. You took my chance at happiness." She didn't flinch, didn't even look guilty this time. Instead, she exhaled, leaning against the doorframe, and finally, for the first time, I saw her drop the pretense. "You want to know the truth? Fine. But don't say I didn't warn you." "I'm listening," I said, my voice icy. "Tell me." Ella's eyes flicked away for a moment, her hand nervously tugging at the sleeve of her jacket. "You know how it goes. Mark was the guy I thought I could have it all with. When we were younger, we were inseparable. But I could never get him to look at me the way I wanted. It wasn't until you and he started dating that I realized he was never really mine, and I wasn't willing to just let go." I felt my stomach drop as she continued. "I was angry, Leah. Angry at you, angry at him, angry at myself. I never told you this, but the night before you two got together, I kissed him." I felt a knot tighten in my throat. "What?" "It was nothing," she said quickly, as if brushing it off. "But I wanted to see if I still had a shot, and I guess, maybe for a while I did. But he didn't choose me. He chose you." I couldn't breathe. My mind reeled, racing back to those years, replaying moments I hadn't noticed before. The strange tension in the air, the way Elle would suddenly appear at family events, the way she always seemed to have a way of making Mark laugh when no one else could. "You didn't just kiss him, did you?" I asked, my voice trembling. She hesitated before speaking again, her words dripping with the kind of regret I hadn't expected. "No, Leah, we didn't sleep together. But that kiss, it meant something, and I could never quite let it go." I stood there, feeling a sickening mixture of anger and disbelief. So it wasn't just a fling, wasn't just a teenage crush. This was something deeper. It had been a betrayal, not just of me, but of everything we'd built. All these years, I had thought I was the one who had moved on, the one who had let go. But Elle had been stuck in the past, clinging to something she'd never fully given up. "So what now?" I asked quietly, the weight of everything she had just confessed settling heavily on my chest. "You think I should just forgive you for this?" Elle didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached for something on the shelf behind her and handed me an old photo. It was a picture of the three of us from a long time ago, Mark, Elle, and me. We were young, so carefree. It was hard to remember a time when things had been simple, before everything had come crashing down. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Elle said softly. "I don't even expect you to understand. But maybe just maybe, I needed you to know. I don't want to be the villain in your story anymore. I looked at the photo in my hand, feeling the weight of it press against my palm. I didn't know what to do with it, with her words. Could I ever forgive her for this? Could I ever trust her again? Thanks for telling me, I said, my voice strained, trying to steady myself. I turned and walked out of her apartment, feeling the door close behind me like the finality of everything I'd never wanted to hear. I thought that confrontation with Elle would be the end of it. A painful chapter closed, an answer to the questions that had gnawed at me for years. But it wasn't. If anything, it just made everything more complicated. For the next week, I kept my distance from Ellie. I didn't want to talk to her, didn't want to see her. I needed space, time to process everything she'd said. I thought about it constantly, but mostly I thought about Mark. I couldn't stop imagining what it must have been like for him. What it must have been like for him to choose me, to choose this life with me, despite everything, despite her. The more I thought about it, the more the pieces started to fall into place. I saw things I hadn't noticed before. The way Mark would sometimes get quiet when Elle was mentioned. The way Elle's name would slip out of his mouth in conversations that should have had nothing to do with her. I wanted to trust him, to believe that it was all behind us, but the more I tried to push the thoughts away, the more they crept in, nagging at me. It wasn't just my trust in Mark that was fractured. It was the foundation of everything. Could I really live with this? Could I really build a future when the past was hanging over us like this? That Saturday, Mark and I were supposed to go out for dinner, just the two of us, a break from the chaos, a chance to reconnect. But when I walked into the kitchen that morning, I found him on the phone, speaking in a low voice. Something about his tone immediately set me on edge. No, I'm not saying it like that, Mark said, his voice tight. I don't want to cause any more problems. It's complicated, okay? I'll talk to her. I stood there, frozen, my hand still gripping the kitchen counter. My heart was pounding in my chest, my mind racing. Who was he talking to? My gut twisted, the familiar pang of jealousy rising up. Who is that? I asked, my voice coming out sharper than I intended. Mark turned quickly, his eyes wide in surprise. He was trying to mask something, trying to hide it, but I saw the flicker of guilt. It's nothing, Leah. Just work. Don't worry about it. But I wasn't ready to let it go, not this time. Who was it, Mark? He hesitated for just a second too long before he replied. It was Elle. I felt the ground shift beneath me. Elle again. I didn't know if I was more furious or hurt. What's she saying to you now, after everything that happened? Mark ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. Leah, it's not like that. I don't. Then why are you talking to her in private? I demanded, stepping closer, not willing to back down. What's going on, Mark? You told me it was over between you two. But it doesn't feel that way. I don't feel like you're telling me everything. He let out a frustrated breath, setting the phone down on the counter. I'm not hiding anything from you, Leah. I'm just trying to be civil. She's been calling me nonstop since the funeral, asking me to meet with her. I froze. She wants to meet with you? Mark ran a hand over his face, clearly losing his patience. Yes, Leah. I don't know what for. She says she wants to talk, about everything. I stood there, my arms crossed tightly over my chest, trying to keep my emotions in check. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him that this was all wrong, that this had gone far enough. But instead, I just felt betrayed. How many times did she need to crawl back into our lives before we could finally move on? I don't want her in our lives anymore, Mark, I said, my voice trembling. I've put up with so much, and now you're telling me you're still talking to her? Still listening to her lies? He stepped toward me, his expression softening. Leah, please, don't take this the wrong way. I don't want to hurt you. But Elle is family too, and I don't want to make things worse. I shook my head, my voice growing colder. Family? Elle is not family. You're making excuses for her. For years I've been trying to hold on to this life we've built, and now you're telling me it was all just for nothing? His face hardened. And for the first time, I saw the frustration break through. It's not like that. I never wanted this, never wanted things to turn out this way. I don't know what she wants. She's always been complicated. Stop, I said, cutting him off. Just stop. I turned away from him, the overwhelming need to be alone taking over. I didn't know if I could trust him anymore. I didn't know if I could trust anyone anymore. Ella had poisoned everything. She had gotten inside of my marriage, inside of my mind, and now I wasn't sure if I could ever escape it. I spent the rest of the day avoiding Mark, even though I could feel his eyes on me whenever I passed through the house. Every time he tried to reach out to me, I pulled away, not knowing what to say, not knowing how to fix this. I went to bed that night with my mind still racing. The sting of what Elle had done, the uncertainty of what Mark had just confessed, it all felt too much to bear. I didn't sleep much that night. Instead, I lay in bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling and replaying every single moment of the last few years. The good times, the bad times, and everything in between. The problem wasn't just Elle anymore. It was the way everything had been tainted, the way trust had eroded piece by piece, until nothing felt solid anymore. I didn't know how to fix it, and maybe, just maybe, I didn't even want to. It had been a week since Mark's conversation with Elle, and every day felt like a slow descent into uncertainty. The cracks in our relationship were no longer subtle. They were huge, glaring, and unignorable. I'd spent countless hours replaying everything in my head, analyzing the moments where things had gone wrong, where I'd missed the signs. The hard truth was, I felt more alone than I had in years. Mark and I hardly spoke now. Our conversations reduced to quiet exchanges about the kids or the house, nothing personal, nothing that mattered. I was starting to wonder if there was any point in trying to salvage something that felt irreparably broken. Every time I looked at him, I saw Elle's shadow hanging over us, clouding everything. I couldn't move forward when the past kept pulling me back. That afternoon, as I sat in the kitchen, trying to focus on a pile of bills, Mark came in, looking different. He had a nervous energy about him, his hands fidgeting, his jaw tight. "Leah," he began, standing awkwardly in the doorway, his voice low. "Can we talk?" I didn't even look up at him. "I don't think there's much left to talk about, Mark." "I know you're angry," he said, his voice faltering, "but I need to explain myself. For real this time. You deserve to hear the truth." I sighed, putting the papers down, finally meeting his eyes. "What else is there to say? You've already told me everything. You kissed her. You loved her. And now she's calling you again, asking to meet. That's all I need to know." "No, that's not it. That's not all of it," he insisted, stepping closer to me. "I never told you the whole story. Not because I was trying to hide things, but because I thought it was over. I thought if I let it go, you'd forgive me and we could move on. But Elle never left. Not in my heart." I shook my head, confused, frustrated. "What do you mean she never left? You married me, Mark. You chose me. Don't you get it? You're still choosing her, in everything you do." "Leah, listen to me," he said urgently, stepping even closer, his eyes pleading. "You're right. I've made a mess of things. But when I said I loved you, I meant it. I still do. I always have. But there's something I never told you, something that's been eating away at me." I froze. "What are you talking about?" He took a deep breath like he was gathering his courage. "Before you and I got together, before any of this happened, Elle asked me to marry her. She was serious. She wanted me, and I didn't know how to say no to her. I was confused, torn between you and her. I thought maybe I could fix things with her. But when you came into my life, when I really got to know you, everything changed. I realized I was making a huge mistake, that I had made a mistake. I never loved her the way I loved you, but I couldn't just let go of everything we'd been through, the past we shared." I blinked, my mind reeling. "You're telling me that all this time you've been holding on to Elle in some way? Because of what? Guilt? Regret?" Mark nodded, his eyes full of sorrow. Yes. And when she showed up again, asking to meet, I was faced with everything I'd pushed down for so long. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to admit that part of me still had a connection with her. But that's all it is, Leah. Just a connection. I don't love her, not anymore. I couldn't believe it. My mind was spinning. So what now, Mark? Are you asking me to just forgive you again? To forget all of this? Please don't make it sound like that, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I don't want to keep lying to you. I need you to know the truth, all of it, so we can figure out what comes next. If that means you leaving me, then I'll accept it. But I had to be honest with you. I swallowed hard, my emotions bubbling up. His honesty, though painful, was a relief. It gave me a clarity I hadn't had in so long. But even with the truth out there, nothing was simple. I stared at him, taking in his words. I could feel the weight of everything crashing down on me. Could I forgive him? Could I live with the idea that he had once been tangled up in in a past I couldn't change? Could I trust him again? I wasn't sure, but one thing was clear. The decision was mine. I had been living in the shadow of for so long, letting her influence everything. Now I had to decide if I was strong enough to move beyond it, or if the past would always be a weight I couldn't shake. I stood up, shaking my head. I need time, Mark. I need to think about everything. But right now, I can't do this. Not like this. Mark nodded slowly, his face full of regret, but understanding. I get it. I'll give you all the time you need. Just know that I'm here. I'll always be here, waiting. I walked out of the room without another word, feeling the weight of his gaze on my back. The house felt empty, hollow. The past, the present, and the future all seemed like this tangled mess of feelings I couldn't make sense of. I had to make a choice not just about Mark, but about myself. The rest of the weekend passed in a blur. I didn't reach out to I didn't reach out to Mark. Instead, I just stayed in my own space, trying to sort through everything. It was in the quiet moments, as I sat alone in my room, that the true question hit me. Who had I become? Was I the woman who let herself be defined by someone else's mistakes? Or was I the woman who chose her own path, no matter how difficult? The answer came to me slowly, like a whisper I had been avoiding. I wasn't just Leah anymore. I was someone who had learned, through all this pain, to take control, and that was my first step toward healing. The next day, I called Mark. I've thought about everything you said, I began, my voice steady. And I think it's time we stop pretending like the past doesn't matter. We need to fix this or let it go. His voice was shaky, relieved. Leah, No, I interrupted, feeling a surge of confidence. It's not about what you want. It's about what I need. And right now, I need to take care of myself. Mark was quiet for a long time. Then he finally spoke, a soft, almost defeated tone. I'll respect whatever you decide. I'll be here when you're ready. Thanks, I said, hanging up the phone. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I had made a decision that was truly mine. I was done with the past, done with done with the pain, done with the choices that weren't mine to make. Now it was time to rebuild, time to find my peace, whatever that looked like.